according to Kevin Fishbain from The Athletic, the Chicago Bears are expected to be heavily targeting offensive linemen in free agency. No crap. No duh. I think we all expect that from the Chicago Bears. Also, we're going to talk about, could Keenan Allen be interesting prospect in free agency for the Chicago Bears if he is indeed cut by the Los Angeles Chargers, which are some rumors going around. We're also going to look at the top tight end prospects that Chicago Bears could take a look at in this upcoming draft. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
All right, Bears fans, welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host here, Haize, one of the hosts, holding it down for my co-hosts, C-Dub and Bobby on the daily episode. And so, the first thing that we want to talk about is The Athletic. Kevin Fishbain did say that the Bears are expected to be kind of aggressive in pursuing offensive linemen in free agency. And I think that, I made a joke a little bit about it in the intro, but I do think that it's already obvious, right? And kind of what we've been talking about here at Chicago Bears Central is just how the benefit of pursuing and spending your money on the front seven on the defense and the offensive line, and then maybe using the draft to kind of fill out the other spots. But when you really look at the offensive line for the Chicago Bears, look, we all know that that's a spot that we're going to need to find the most talent available at. Really, when you look at it, Tevin Jenkins, Braxton Jones are probably the only ones that are for sure going to return as starters for the Chicago Bears, and we're really going to be looking at really filling out the rest of that. When you look at Cody Whitehair, Lucas Patrick, Sam Mustipher, there are questions around all of those guys. Sam Mustipher as well, who's a restricted free agent. He could be back in a reserve role, even though I think all of Bears Nation is just over it when it comes to Sam Mustipher. But we all know that the offensive line is going to be needed and going to be something that we hope that Ryan Poles addresses early in free agency. Now, I know there are some talented offensive linemen as well in the draft. The way that I hope Ryan Poles goes about it is you bring in veterans, you spend that money to bring in some really great, good to great offensive linemen. And then, hey, if there's some offensive linemen in the draft that you can draft and have as depth pieces, maybe develop while those veterans, maybe you sign those veterans to 2 or 3 year contracts. By the time those veterans are off those contracts, we've now built up young talent to come and take in and step in their place, and we can ride that out, add them to Braxton Jones and Tevin Jenkins, 2 very young players in that as well. And, you know, that's what I think that Ryan Poles is going to do, and that's what I think is kind of the most sound thing to do. You want to protect your young quarterback, and what better ability to protect them than veterans who have done it before. Now, we know Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears have a lot of money. They have to be very particular in how they spend that money. And we talked about on yesterday's daily episode just kind of the methodology that Ryan Poles is going to have when adding talent to the Chicago Bears team, and how they're not going to just spend money kind of willy-nilly just to spend money because they have it. They're going to make strategic acquisitions that kind of fit in with a goal and a purpose, and that isn't much different than what Ryan Poles did even last season. And again, now we're going to see more long-term money. We're going to see longer deals, more 2-3 year deals than kind of the 1 year prove-it deals that he gave out last season, at least hopefully so. And then even with that, still have ability to go through the draft, build through there, bring in your next generation, stuff like that. So we know that this team needs drastic help on the offensive line, and you need to protect Justin Fields. He was sacked, I think, the most by any quarterback last year with 55 sacks. We need to protect Justin Fields. We need to really be able to evaluate him as a passer next season. And for us to do that, we're going to have to make considerable changes on that offensive line and improvements there. So I know, and I know I joke, but it's one of those obvious things that we know the Chicago Bears have to do this offseason, and one of the things that we all hope they focus on. Now, next up that I want to talk to you guys, and this is something that came out from Daniel Popper, again, of The Athletic, and said that the Chargers are currently right now $23.4 million over the salary cap. So that leads them so that they may have to make some cuts. And one of those potential cuts is 31-year-old wide receiver Keenan Allen. Now, this is a guy who carries a cap hit of $21.7 million next season for the Los Angeles Chargers. I think I still call them by their old name, but the San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers now. But with that being said, could this team take a look at Keenan Allen? Could the Bears do that if he is indeed waived or cut by the Chargers? And I look at it like this. Again, not a long-term player or whatever, because as I've said, and you guys kind of know if you've been watching the show consistently, my methodology and what I think the Bears are going to do, they're going to focus on that front seven on defense, focus on the offensive line, and they may not make the wide receiver, the big-time wide receiver acquisitions that some Bears fans are hoping that they make. I think that the acquisitions there, they may they're still add to the wide receiver core, but I think they're going to want to evaluate Mooney, Claypool, who extensions are eligible, and really get a chance to look at them, what they look like, what Justin Fields looks like as a passer. And because of that, the Bears may go maybe some shorter term veteran contracts to add to this wide receiver core. And Keenan Allen is definitely a player that could fit that bill when you look at him. 6'2", 211 pounds. He has had, he was battling injury last season, so definitely want to pay respect to that. Last season, it was 752 yards for him on 66 receptions. But other than that, he's had seasons of 1,000 yards. Other than the last 7 seasons, it's only been 2. The last 6 seasons, only 2 have been sub 1,000. We're looking at in 2021, for example, he had 106 receptions for 1,138 yards, averaging 10.7 yards per reception and 6 touchdowns. Like I said, not necessarily the earth-shattering acquisition by any stretch of the imagination that some Bears fans hope that the Chicago Bears are going to make this offseason, but this could be a nice depth acquisition for the Chicago Bears. And listen, Keenan Allen, 31 years old, is still a damn good player, right? It's not like he's coming in being a bad player. So you really want to take a look. If you want to evaluate Justin Fields, you want to add a player who can seamlessly fit in, really can play in any scheme, and it can do some things for the Bears. I look at that Keenan Allen acquisition, and depending on the money, right? It all depends on what the money and how you can get it to work out, but I'm not necessarily hating it. Let me know down below. Question of the day, would you guys, on a reasonable deal, like to see Keenan Allen as a Chicago Bears wide receiver if he ended up cut by the Chargers? All right. Now, before we go, this is something that I was supposed to do on Monday's episode. We had a mailbag on it, and I promised that I was going to cover it. I forgot. Chargers to my mind, not to my heart. But we want to talk about the top tight end prospects in the NFL draft for the Chicago Bears. Now, the top overall tight end prospect is Michael Mayer, but he's expected to go as high as 10th. I don't think he's expected to go too lower than that. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be in the Bears, because where the Bears pick in the first round, I think they have way bigger things to address than the tight end position, especially with Cole Kmet, especially after Luke Getsy has already said that Cole Kmet is going to be a big part of the offense. And he also said Chase Claypool is going to have tons of opportunity next season, which I'm excited about. But he is definitely the top prospect overall at tight end. I just don't necessarily think that the Bears are going to go tight end that early in the draft. He has a great skill set for the NFL. He has great blocking skills. He can do things. He has the ability to catch. He's really a nice overall tight end that can do both things. Now, he's not the most dynamic passer in the passing game. He's more of a possession player when it comes to that. But again, I don't necessarily think he's going to be in the range of where the Bears pick anyway, but I did want to mention him and talk about him because he is the top overall prospect tight end in this draft. But like I said, considering that it's not a big position in need, I don't think the Bears are necessarily going to go that route. But the next one that I do want to talk about that is, and maybe depending on what happens with the Bears and if they get an additional first round pick, maybe lower, that's Darnell Washington. This is a tight end out of Georgia, 6'7", 265 pounds. This guy is just a baller. He excels at blocking, which is definitely something that we can use, especially if we do end up going tight end. He could pair well with Cole Kmet and being able to be that big blocker. Great height, weight combination. He catches, pass catching is a huge upside for him. Some of the issues with him is that his production isn't always the best. He doesn't have the best ability to get separation. But again, another player that the Bears could take a look at. Now, this next set of players, these are going to be the ones that are more so in the Bears' range, more so in that second round. And that's Dalton Kincaid, tight end out of Utah, 6'4", 242 pounds. This is a guy who has great hands, great ball skills, great body control in the passing game. He was used great in college. The way that he was used in college, you can see translating over to the NFL game very easily. Some of the issues with him is that he's kind of just okay as a blocker, right? Not the great there. He gets a lot of the touch calls as well, things like that. And he's only played football since 2017. So not one of the people who've just been playing football their whole entire lives. Now that could work with the upside. You could look and say, well, if he's this good already and this high on the prospect list, with the upside that he could have as being somebody who hasn't played football a long time, definitely could take a look at him for the Chicago Bears. Next one up is Tucker Kraft. Now, this is a tight end out of South Dakota State, a junior, 6'5", 255 pounds. This guy is strong. The size and strength, the athleticism, the receiving, what he's able to do in the receiving game. Again, not somebody that I necessarily think is a Cole Kmet level, but again, you're not necessarily drafting for that. Very versatile in how you use him in the run and passing game. He can be used great in that in blocking. Some of the issues and more concerns with him, doesn't have the best hands. Once he does get the ball, it's great. Doesn't necessarily have the best hands. He's a very raw prospect on top of that. And there's been some questions about his competitiveness, his drive there. And with the Chicago Bears trying to fix some things and really build out a team, I worry about if on your scouting report it says that drive is one of the causes for concern. So you definitely got to take a look at that. But he averaged 12 yards per reception, which is really good for a tight end. Again, another guy that I think Tucker Kraft that the Bears could take a look at. Next up on this list is Sam Laporta. This is a tight end out of Iowa, 6'4", 249 pounds. He had 58 receptions for 657 yards, 1 touchdown. He averaged 11 yards per reception. Great route running. This dude has almost wide receiver level route running. Great hands. He can work in every area of the field. He's a good athlete. He competes for the catches. He's also a competitive blocker. Now, some of the issues with him, he doesn't always hold on to his blocks long enough. And for a team that is already trying to fix keeping Justin Fields upright, that may be a big sign of concern there. And he hasn't always been the most dominant player in the blocking game as well. Again, as a tight end, you may want where they'd be drafting him at is also plays a part into that. He's expected to go more towards in the 80s or 100 as far as overall number in the draft. So the Bears could take a look at him there, considering the 8 picks that they have in this upcoming draft, with maybe even more to come once they do trade that number 1 overall pick. So a player that the Bears could take a look at there. Next one up is Cameron Latu. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. 6'5", 244 pounds, a tight end out of Alabama. 30 receptions last year for 377 yards. It's good for an average of 12 yards per carry. Also 4 touchdowns. This guy has great football IQ, and you can't always teach IQ. He is a player that just understands the game, doesn't always have the best speed, the best strength, but his ability to understand how to use his body, how he understands the game of football definitely can work out for him there. Very versatile tight end, and he can be used in run blocking, pass blocking, also in the pass game. He doesn't have the best upside though, right? He's not the best athlete. And so for people who look at that type of thing, again, one of the people that we have on this team that we all love is Jack Sanborn. He wasn't considered the best athlete either. So there can be value to be had, even if a player doesn't necessarily project to be the best athlete. So the Bears could absolutely take a look at him as well. And just to throw in an additional one as well, we're going to take a look at Josh White, a tight end out of Cincinnati, senior, 6'6", 245 pounds, a guy who just has great size positionally. He's versatile again in how you can use him. He has a nice receiving overall, 32 receptions, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, 10 yards per reception in that. That's things that you all look for. He's still developing as a blocker. He can do that here on the Chicago Bears. Again, if they do draft tight end, because tight end is not necessarily a huge position of need, we can see them take some time to really craft and develop those skills for him. And the thing with that is like yards after the catch. Do not expect big yards after the catch for him. So, he's not that, he doesn't have that type of speed, that type of attributes for him. So he's not going to be a guy that gets you a lot of yards after the catch. But again, very physical player, and another player that the Bears absolutely could take a look at. Let me know what you guys think of these prospects and the other prospects at the tight end position you'd like the Bears to take a look at. But that's it for me for today. Make sure you're following the show at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and or voicemail, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. Yeah, that's it for us for today. Thank you for tuning in to Chicago Bears Central, the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.